Hi class, I wanted to give you some tips for week 3's argument paper rough draft. As always, my first tip is to make sure you read very carefully through all of the assignment directions. Okay. There's a lot of directions and there's some things that help you, some tips here at the bottom too, things to make sure you have in your paper. Okay, and there's also some good resources down here for grammar checker, plagiarism checker, and up here for the reference and citation generator. But basically you want to make sure you download the APA paper template. We'll get that up and take a look at that. So first, make sure that you have all the information entered in. You all have hopefully already done this for your outline. So that should be the same. I might, if there's anything that I correct on that, you can note that there, and then you can remove this. We don't need to have that line there. Okay, so you're going to put your title, and the first thing you're going to make sure that you erase this information. Okay, but this actually has some interesting tips in there. But you're going to have your introduction here, and it's always good to start with your hook and then to move to some context, to some background on your topic, and then to finish your introduction with your thesis statement and overview of key points. Okay, so make sure that's what you have, and if you notice the first paragraph is indented. Okay, if you look here, the paragraphs are aligned to the left as well. Okay, the paragraphs are double spaced by formatting the paragraph. This is all done for you automatically. Okay, but this is how you want it to stay. You should have your level 1 headings. Those were also in your outline, so you can review those. But basically, you want to make sure you're going to have 3 body paragraphs. Each one should start with your topic sentence, and then have your evidence and your analysis. Make sure that each body paragraph ends with your own ideas, because not with a paraphrase or a quote, because you're always wanting to make sure with each piece of evidence that you tie it back into the point of the paragraph. Okay, so remember, you're going to have 3 distinct body paragraphs, one for each key point that you covered in your outline. Okay, so this one thing that notice that this template does not have is it only says level 1 heading for here, but you're going to need a level 1 heading for each of your body paragraphs. That's centered and bolded, unlike the rest, which is aligned to the left and not bolded. Okay. And then finally, you're going to want to end with your conclusion. Okay, we're going to have some tips and ideas for how to write a conclusion in the week 3's discussion forums, but remember that you want to revisit the ideas from your introduction in light of all the evidence that you brought forth in your body paragraphs, and make sure that each of your paragraphs is at least, including your introduction and conclusion, they should be a minimum of 5 sentences long, probably ideally a little closer to 8. Okay, the last element that you want to keep in mind for your rough draft is you want to have your reference page. Your reference page is going to be a little bit different than your outline reference page that you made, because here we're going to want to make sure that we have a hanging indent. Okay, for all the, well, first of all, references is going to be centered at the top of the page, the word references. But then from there, each of your entries is going to have a hanging indent. And the way you do that is you go to paragraph and you go to special and you're going to select hanging. Okay, so what that does is that makes it so that the first line of each resource is going to not be indented, but then as you keep writing for that resource, it'll wrap around and be indented. And then when you press enter to have your new second resource, it will have the first line not indented. So it's kind of backwards from a regular paragraph for your reference, your source entries. The other thing to keep in mind is that these are going to be in alphabetical order by the first letter of the resource entry. Okay, it's not the order that they appeared in the paragraphs. It's going to be alphabetical order. The other thing to keep in mind about your reference page is to make sure that you take out those descriptions. You had descriptions of why the resources were credible for week 2's assignment. You're not going to include that in your reference page. So again, like always, make sure you review your work carefully for errors before handing it in. You can use the tools in Microsoft Word, or if you remember back to the assignment directions, there's a lot of great tools in the CWE, some grammar checking tools. One last word on the worksheet, make sure that you have a reference citation for every single resource that you use. In week 2, you only had to list 3 of them, but here you're going to want a reference citation for each one that you used in your body paragraphs. So although the assignment directions say 3 to 5 total sources, if you ended up using, it says 3 to 5 quotes and paraphrases. If you end up having 6, that's fine with me because that's 2 for each paragraph. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out, and best of luck with this assignment.